I call to order the January 6th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That was the roll call.
Yes. Commissioner Campbell,
Present.
Commissioner Stolarski,
Present.
Commissioner Willenbring,
Present.
and Chair Millis.
Here.
And we have Commissioners Diata and Pearson are absent. But we have a quorum.
Next up is the approval of minutes. First, we need to approve the minutes from November 4th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Next up is the December 2nd, 2021 Planning Commission meeting.
I will abstain, I wasn't there.
I will not, so we can hit quorum. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Next up, Councilmember Swedberg, do you have any updates for us?
Not really. As you see, we have a full house tonight, but which is really nice to see. So, Happy New Year, everyone, and like I said, we have a lot going on. This is going to be an exciting year for us, so we have a lot to do, and lots of questions and lots of answers, so let's rock and roll, okay?
Sounds good. First up, we have some old business. We have a continuance of the public hearing on Hy-Vee. Do you have anything to add?
Sure. A couple of items since the last meeting. I mentioned at our last discussion that one of the issues with approving this PUD amendment was that kiosk sales were a prohibited use. The applicant has requested removing kiosk sales from the list of prohibited uses. In the staff report, I explained that I find that to be appropriate and consistent with the district, so I would recommend that approval of that request. There has been some update with the drive-through lanes, I believe. I'll let the applicant speak to this, but I believe that there's a limit of 5 drive-through lanes in the Tartan Crossing PUD. We are exceeding that with their proposal. I think that they're going to request allowing the drive-through lanes as proposed here. There's still an issue with needing a bypass lane. That's one of our standards for drive-throughs, so we can discuss that when the applicant speaks. And yeah, so my recommendation is still for conditional approval with conditions being that the amendment to the list of prohibited uses is approved. There's a parking deviation being requested because they're losing some parking spaces, but we find that request is appropriate, and we would recommend approval of that. And then the drive-through use, either reducing the number of drive-through lanes, incorporating a bypass lane, or some combination of the two. And I believe the applicant is here tonight, so if you would like to ask them any questions, or if they'd like to present any material.
Good evening. My name is John Brim. I'm Director of Site Planning for Hy-Vee. Appreciate you taking the time to table it from the last meeting and picking it up again at this meeting. Apologies that I couldn't be here last time. Typically at a tabling, I haven't been used to actually going and answering questions when we were going to table. So my apologies for my misunderstanding on that. A couple questions have been asked about the aisles and line drive-through. It might help if I backed up just a little bit and gave a little bit of history on why we're asking for this in the first place. Back in 2018, 2017, we started our e-commerce sales, trying to keep up with the Walmarts and the Amazons of the world and remain relevant. We called it Aisles Online at that time, and we managed to take on orders roughly 40 to 60 a day at our busiest stores, and we could manage that kind of traffic with parking stalls just right in front of the store. I believe we had 4 here at Oakdale originally, and that worked great up until March of 2020 for obvious reasons. COVID forced a lot of people to try our Aisles Online, and the first few weeks into the pandemic, when everything was really locked down, we had traffic jams at a lot of our stores, 25 cars to 40 cars deep along the front, getting out into public right-of-ways. And so we immediately just made a decision to drop containers in a lot of our stores' parking lots, and redirect that traffic away from the front of the store and away from the normal customer traffic, and try and alleviate that traffic congestion. Now that a huge majority of our customers have tried the service and like it, we're seeing approximately 10% of our customers using Aisles Online almost exclusively instead of parking in the parking lot and shopping the stores. So we see a permanent need to provide that kiosk function in the parking lot and separate those traffic flows, the people picking up their groceries on their way home from work or whatever they're doing on their trips, versus the people that actually want to do their own shopping inside the store. And so that's where this project came from. We already have over 20 of these built at our stores, other stores in the Twin Cities market that are getting constructed right now are in Savage and New Hope, and we have the foundations in at a store in Mankato. That's not Twin Cities, but Minnesota. We find that once they're installed, pickup times drop considerably. Customers can pull in and have their order in their trunk in a minute or less, depending on how good the staff is at the store. And so with e-commerce continuing to be a strong driver for retail sales, we're anticipating it going from the 10% that we're currently seeing of our total sales volume on average up to 30% in the future. And so this is positioning ourselves really to handle that traffic when we see 30% of our customers shopping online and picking up their groceries. As far as stalls versus the drive-through, we tried the stalls at a number of locations. We ended up using 40 or more stalls where people would pull in. It was very confusing for customers. Some people would pull in and they'd be stuck waiting. And then they'd be waiting there, and then someone else would pull up beside them, and they would get loaded right away. And it was not very intuitive use. And then we had the problem with cars backing up into each other, and it was kind of chaos. And so the drive-through concept, people understand that really easily. People have been doing it for a long time now, since the 50s. Drive up, get your burger, and get out. This is a similar concept. We have 4 lanes. You pull in. Our employee can look out through the sliding glass door in the kiosk, see that a customer's there. We also have a system called a cartel system. It's basically your old gas station doorbell that would ring when someone pulls up to let our employees inside the kiosk know someone is there. We see who it is, the license plate, bring the order out to them, load it in their trunk, and off they go. There's no transaction taking place at the kiosk. It's simply a pickup point. If a customer pulls up and there is something wrong with their order, or if they want to get something else, they'll have to pull into the parking lot and do the rest of their shopping inside the store. So that's the stalls versus the drive-through, a really long explanation of that. And then we haven't seen a need for bypasses, really. I don't know what the city's intent on bypasses is, but I'm imagine it's for fast food restaurants where you have to place an order and then sit and wait, and it's just one line. And you also have additional traffic trying to get around or circulate around a business. In that case, a bypass lane makes a lot of sense. In this case, we have 4 lanes available. One of those could be used as a bypass lane. If we have issues, we don't anticipate having any issues. We can put 4 cars through every minute, so we can handle an awful lot of traffic through there. We've also put this kiosk on the west side of the building, and that isolates that traffic flow from the rest of the store. So we really don't anticipate this having an effect or needing a bypass lane in order to make it work effectively and efficiently. And I'll stop talking at this point and let you ask questions. Thank you.
Do you know how often all 4 lanes are used then during the day?
I have one of our busiest stores right down the street from my house, and it's been my observation that the typical load is about 2 cars at any one time.
So
And
other
that's,
than
and that's during,
convenience-
and that's during peak hours.
Okay, so
so-
other than convenience, why would you need the 4th lane then?
The 4 lanes is so that we are ready for that 30%, 30% of volume. We don't want to build a small, undersized facility and then have to come back to the city
Okay,
in another couple of years. Yeah, we're building out for the future.
And you're thinking that then your peak hours are like 4:30 after work. They're
Right.
picking them up after work and.
Right. And the kiosk in a peak hour could handle, what we have here could handle 16 cars stacked at a time,
I
going
guess
through that.
if they had 4 lanes, if it gets to the point where they only use 3 or 2 at the height,
Yeah.
that would make the bypass lane. So
Right.
like you're saying, with the 4 lanes,
Right,
it makes it,
right.
where there shouldn't be any backup anytime. It makes
Right.
it convenient for everyone, because if someone says, well, I forgot something, and pulls off to the side and says, well,
Yeah.
then they could do that.
Yeah, and there's really, the kiosk forms kind of a pocket off on that west side of the parking lot, so there's really no reason for anybody to be there, other than if they're picking up their groceries. There's no parking stalls. There's no access to 10th Street off of there, so there's really no reason for a customer to be there, other than to pick up their groceries.
Now, that's used for the restaurant right now, correct?
Yeah, the
Basically.
restaurant can use that space, or the space out in front.
Right,
Yeah.
right now, but at the time that you're going to change all this is only for the pickup. This will
Right.
only be for the
Yeah,
pickup.
the far west bay. The bay against the building will still be available for the restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Could you make that so that the 3 lanes are predominantly used, or have a sign of some kind for non-peak hours, that the 4th is only used during those peak hours?
Sure. Yeah, we could accommodate that. The other thing I guess I will note is, since it's an application, we have the ability to set the number of orders that we'll actually accept and drive through the kiosk at any one time. So if we do start seeing issues where we have too much traffic backing up, we can set the number of orders.
Okay.
Like a time slot.
Yes, exactly. We can set time slots in 15-minute increments and
Right.
control the traffic flow that way.
And regardless of what we say, as a business, you'd want to do that anyways.
Right.
Yes, yeah, we don't want, customers don't particularly like, I don't particularly like getting stuck in a line or waiting for people that are waiting for something in a line, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know, but if there's nothing else you have, I have a couple things. With respect to the drive-through lanes, I think you're absolutely right. The intent of it is for those fast food uses where you get stacked up and I'm blocked and I've made this impulse purchase or this impulse decision, and now I have to escape because it's taking too long. For something like this, I've already made the purchase. I have to pick this up. I'm not coming to abandon and sneak out. So personally, I don't see any reason to have a bypass lane. I guess my bigger concern is this discussion about 5 lanes in the overall PUD, because I don't think we're counting the 2
Yeah.
drive-through lanes that they have currently for pharmacy and the existing pickup. So
Right.
how is that getting,
Yeah,
wrapped into all
so
of
you're
this.
right. In the staff report, I missed the drive-through lane for the pharmacy. So yes, we should add that. So there are 3 currently. The one drive-up lane that you're currently using for pickup, I'm assuming that will go away when you have the kiosk. Is that true or no?
It'll still be there. I mean,
Okay.
it's physically, it's that size.
The way it's
It
built.
may,
Oh, okay.
depending on our pharmacy business,
Mm.
we do have some stores that will have 2 lanes for pharmacy pickup.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And we could add an extra, an exterior tube.
Oh, I see. So what the planning commission can do if you see fit, if you don't think that there's a problem with the 4 lanes that they're proposing for this Isles Online, this is a planned unit development and they've requested an amendment, so you could just amend the PUD to approve the site plan as it is. You could make approve it with conditions. If you want to add a condition about the signage for the 4th lane being for peak hour only, you could add that as a condition. So, we have some flexibility here, given that it's a PUD.
My recommendation would be to approve it as is.
I agree.
Can I share Commissioner Pearson's emailed
Yes,
comments?
please.
Yep. So his only comment was, or he had 2 comments. The use of these lanes will reduce the number of people parking. So reducing the required parking spots is acceptable, should be acceptable. I believe the PUD restriction on kiosks was probably due to a cut and paste from another document and not edited out as was probably intended, since the underlying district allowed it. So amending is quite appropriate. Those were his comments on this one.
Does anybody else have any extra questions?
Not for me.
Is there anybody here who wants to speak? And I'm going to close the public hearing.
Okay.
We are going to go through these approvals one at a time. I'm looking for a motion to approve the text amendment of the PUD text amendment to remove kiosk sales from the list of prohibited uses.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Next up is the parking deviation of 25 spaces. I'm looking for an amendment to deviate from the 25 parking spaces. And do I have a motion to do that?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And then up next is the drive-through. I am going to ask for a motion to approve as the way it is written. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nay.
We don't have a quorum on it, so,
Because as you've written, you're saying as it's written, reduced to 3.
oh, no, sorry. As
That was-
written
that was
in,
the vote that
sorry.
just took place.
We'll do it again. I am looking for a motion to leave the lane as shown on the site. Ugh, here, I
You're
gotta go
looking
back.
to approve it as shown on the site plan.
Yes, I am looking to approve as shown on the site plan. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Moving on next to the CUP and IUP for the Doggie Daycare.
All right. Okay, this is an application for a conditional use permit to establish a doggy daycare in an existing commercial building at 315 through, or 3115, 31 through 3117 Hadley Avenue. The IUP, the interim use permit, is for an outdoor play area. The reason that the outdoor play area is established through an interim use permit is so that you can tie that to the doggy daycare business, and so it wouldn't just be there eventually by itself if the doggy daycare goes elsewhere. I'd like to mention that in the language in the staff report, I referred to Baxter's Playhouse, which is the LLC that was the applicant. However, the applicant has requested that all of the interim use permit be tied to Central Bark, which will be the name of the business. So if you recommend approval, I will recommend changing that in the resolution. Looking at the conditional use permit requirements, staff didn't find any issue with any of them regarding moving the doggy daycare into the existing building. The interim use criteria, which deal with the outdoor play area, I will speak to this a little bit, and then the applicant is here who could probably answer more questions on that. They are planning on putting, it's a paved area right now, so they are planning to put an AstroTurf-like surface on the area that would be able to be easily cleaned and kept up. The only criteria that we potentially flagged for discussion was that interim use may produce odors, although the applicants have provided a plan for keeping the area clean and what types of substances they would use. There's potential for additional noise from dogs being outside, but we don't believe that noise would exceed what you would expect in that community commercial district and the railroad that's adjacent. So according to the applicant's maintenance plan, we feel that they would meet the criteria for the interim use permit. So staff recommended approval of both approval of the conditional use permit, approval of the interim use permit with some conditions. Those conditions were taken from some of your previous approvals for doggy daycare exercise areas. I believe that the applicant may want to speak to the number of dogs allowed outside at any time, at any given time. But as I understand it, they were okay with the rest of the conditions, and they are here if you would like to hear from them.
We'll go ahead and open up the public hearing, and if you guys want to say anything, come on up.
My name is Angie Holbrook.
My name is Chris Holbrook. I'm 49% owner of this doggy daycare.
As it should be.
Yes, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I don't know if you have any questions up front for us, or should I just go right into what we wanted to talk about?
Go ahead and.
Okay, so outside, it says here no more than 15 dogs are allowed outside at one time. What we had planned was the exterior area is about 3,000 square feet that we were gonna fence in, and that would be divided into 4 separate play areas. And each play area at maximum capacity would have like 12 dogs in it, and with a dog handler in each one. So that would be like 48 dogs. So that's the plan.
If I could give a little overview, this franchise, Central Bark, has a prescription of no more than 1 dog for every 80 square feet of the building. The building,
Well-
which is in the bottom corner of that, it's in the Menards parking lot. It used to be a dart game place.
Before that.
So it's 7,200 square feet. The maximum capacity for the dogs, if our business develops to full capacity, would be 96, based on the maximum allowable per the franchise requirements.
Yeah.
And the whole health of the dog system is a rotation where half of the dogs are at sleep, the other half are inside
Playing.
or outside playing.
Yeah.
With an attendant for every
12
12
dogs. Well,
dogs.
24 dogs, but they're split. So one attendant has 24 dogs. Half of them are in the nap room, half of them are playing. So that's kind of at max capacity, we would have possibly 48 dogs outside. I did bring, there's a Central Bark in Rochester. They've been open for 2.5 years. I have a picture here, how close they are to an apartment building. I don't know if you can see it from where you are, but
We
adjacent
can
to their
pass it
play
around.
areas.
If you want to pass it around.
Sure. Adjacent to their play areas, they have an apartment building. And they had one person complain during their first year in business, and that's the only complaint they've ever gotten. So it's just managing the dogs. Usually dogs that are in a yard by themselves might bark at people passing by or cars, but that's just not how things are when they're playing and somebody is supervising.
I would just add also, as you're thinking about this, that the city does have a noise ordinance that we can fall back on, of course, if there are issues of noise or noise complaints. Those can be investigated and taken care of.
Is there a city ordinance or anything that limits them to 15 dogs in that area?
No.
Being a commercial area where it's at, it's not really located in any housing per se. I mean, there's railroad tracks and then there's housing
Yeah.
quite a ways away.
It's not really
And
close.
so, and you're dealing with people going in and out of Menards, and then the rental place is your biggest area, I would think would be the biggest.
Yeah.
If someone here was from the rental place and had concerns about it, you know, we would definitely listen to their concerns, but
Yeah.
as far as where the location is, I'm thinking that, you know, it's a lot of dogs, yes, but it's also, we're in an industrial area, we're not really talking about
Yeah.
keeping people up or babies crying or something.
Right, and
Right.
that's one of the attractions to us of the area, and
Right.
as the model of this business is, you know, all noisy dogs, you know, they come inside, they get timeouts, things like that, so it's not just throwing 100 dogs
Yeah.
out in a big
Just letting 'em
3,000 square
bark and
foot
run
yard,
around,
and
so,
good luck
yeah.
to you, so.
It's just
But
not
yeah,
like that.
absolutely follow and, you know, correct any ordinance violations or complaints.
And the building
Yeah, I
has
mean,
been
it's,
empty for such a long time, it's such a nice idea to have something that was going in there that will last, hopefully, and,
Yeah.
you know, and be a good fit for it, so.
And you said it's going to have 4 play spaces,
mm-hmm.
and you're only going to allow 12 at a time in each, is what you're,
Yeah, because it's a max, because for safety purposes, I mean, in a lot of doggy daycares, they have like one dog attendant, might have 20, 25 dogs. So we just do it where we split those dogs up, so we'd have a very structured nap time, because dogs don't play all day, you know, they nap, so we structure it. So just 12 dogs for each dog handler at one time. It's a much safer way of doing it. So yeah, we would have 4 separate play spaces out there, and there would only be 12 dogs in each one.
any of you have any more questions?
I do have one other thing, the next item, dogs are only allowed in the outdoor play area between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. I was just concerned because we'll open at 7 a.m., but we'll get there at like 6:30, and any overnight dogs that are there, we'd want to give them a potty break before we actually open the doors for the day. They wouldn't be out there playing, they would be out there just to relieve themselves first thing in the morning.
Okay.
Aaron, how did we decide on 7 to 9?
Again, that was taken from another IUP that was approved, so I think if you wanted to modify it, you know, to 6 or 6:30 a.m. for night dogs.
Similar use, this was approved? or
Yes,
just-
for the same use, yes.
Is it a residential or a commercial area where the other one is located?
Well, it would have had to have been located in a commercial area. I don't know exactly whether there was adjacent residential, and that's why it was a little more stringent. That very well could be. So you can modify the conditions based on this location.
Okay.
And is that IUP still in effect, or
The old one?
the one you took this from?
I don't know the answer to that.
Is there another doggy daycare in Oakdale?
I'm not sure.
There have been 3 CUPs for it, I believe. I don't know if they're still in
I
business.
know we've got a lot of veterinarians and that type of thing.
Yeah.
And they have similar concerns because they let their dogs go out.
And at the end of the day, regardless, I mean, if we move this to 6:30, we still have a noise ordinance that's in effect. So
Yes. Yep.
that trumps your IUP.
Yes.
Right. May I read Commissioner Pearson's
please.
comments? Okay. He just had one. It was actually just a question. The outdoor play area is over the blacktop. Is that sufficient, or does it require changes to replace the blacktop with grass area? And I think we discussed that, but maybe you could explain a little bit more about the surface that,
Sure, it's a canine turf, basically, that is widely used in doggy daycares, and it's installed over some drain tile, and which allows for airflow and everything. And so it's much easier to clean because you can spray it down, and rather than a grassy area that just, you can't really do anything. I mean, it's just, it rains or whatever, and things just are there. You can pick up the feces, but, so it is a lot more, it's antimicrobial. Oh, I can't. And,
I
yeah.
couldn't say that word either.
So it's just a much cleaner way of having an outdoor area. And so that's basically how it's done at the other franchises. It's usually over concrete or blacktop. So,
Any additional questions? Is there anybody else here who wishes to speak on this matter?
we did, oh, yeah, go ahead.
Got to come on up here to the microphone, sorry. And please introduce yourself too when you come up.
Jump off to the side here. Okay.
I'm Dave Landy. I live at 76 to 130th Street North, so I'm across the street from the street that parallels the railroad tracks. But just to make clear, when you have 48 dogs out, which is a lot of dogs, and they go back in, the other 48 come out? So you're constantly rotating?
it could be. I mean, this is, yeah, because if it's a really nice day, they would be
Yeah.
doing that rotation.
Okay. And then you indicated one handler for each 12 dogs. So will details like that be in the IUP?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so maximum of 12 dogs per play area plus one handler for
Yes.
each 12 dogs, okay.
Mhm.
48 dogs sounds to me like a whole lot, and I think it is, but,
It sounds like a lot because usually we're thinking about the neighbor's, barking dog, and then
Yeah.
you multiply it by
Yeah.
48. Yeah, but usually dogs that are barking excessively are left alone by themselves.
Yes.
They're bored.
yeah,
And these dogs just wouldn't, I mean, if there was any dog that was hyped up for some
Yeah.
reason, they would go inside.
okay,
Because the last thing we want to do is disturb the neighbors,
okay.
you know?
Is this your first franchise or entry into the doggy
Yeah,
daycare
yeah.
business? Okay,
Yeah, we've been working on this for 3 years.
okay,
So we've gone to seminars, studied, this is all a process. This is one of the advantages we found of buying a franchise. They have the system all figured out
Yeah.
on the way to be safe, attentive to the dog, respectful of the neighbor.
yeah,
We feel real good about that. And the maximum number of dogs we're talking about, years to get to that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like day one we open up and there's gonna be 100 or
yeah, 96
Yeah.
dogs.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal someday, but.
No, another question, and this really is more toward the welfare of the dogs. I mean, that close to railroad tracks, is there gonna be an adverse effect when those trains roll by? And they're going by, duration of a train is probably 3, 4, 5 minutes, maybe once an hour. So,
That's a great question.
That is a
Yeah.
great question.
How often do the trains come
Once
through?
I'm guessing once
About
an
an
hour.
hour, once an hour. I live in the
so
same
it's-
area.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
I mean, we had dogs in there and never bothered by it, but they got
Yeah.
used to it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, these
I
dogs
guess we're
might
gonna
have to
learn and deal
find
with
Okay.
train disruptions.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay,
Okay, you need to be in front of the
Oh.
microphone,
Everybody
sorry.
needs to, yeah.
okay, that's all I had.
Thank you. Are there any more questions or comments? Okay, then we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing.
Can I read a written comment that was submitted? Okay, we did get one email comment from Maxine and Jim Schultz at 2982 Hallmark Avenue North. They write, I am writing in regards to the conditional and interim use permit request by Central Bark. Because of my concerns of contracting COVID, we will not be attending the meeting. Please be advised, though, that we have very strong concerns regarding an outdoor dog play area abutting the backyards of our residential neighborhood. We already experience freeway and Hadley Avenue traffic noise, rumbling trains, and occasional work noise, i.e. mixing cement, etc., from Oakdale, Rental, and Menards. We do not want barking dogs added to the mix. The Holbrooks might assure you that this will not be a problem, but we do not believe their business is appropriate here. Although we are very fond of animals and dogs, we are asking that you do not grant this request.
Now I will close the public hearing. I am looking for a motion to recommend the approval of the conditional use permit for a kennel dog daycare at 3115 to 3117 Hadley Avenue North. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Ne-
Are we gonna update this?
We're going to the next motion.
Okay.
There's more than one motion. Next up is the motion to recommend approval of the interim use permit for an exterior outdoor play area at 3115 to 3117 Hadley Avenue North, subject to the following conditions. A, the outdoor area will be cleaned daily. B, barking or howling dogs shall be returned indoors immediately. C, dogs will always be supervised when outdoors. D, the privacy fence for the outdoor area must, 1, be a minimum of 6 feet high. 2, be 100% opaque. 3, be earth tone color. 4, be of high quality. 5, be constructed as depicted on the site plan and application materials. No more than 4 play spaces may be constructed in the back, with 12 dogs per space, and 1 handler must be present at all times. And F, dogs are not allowed in the outdoor play area between, dogs are only allowed in the outdoor play area between, do we want to do 6 or 6:30?
6:30.
6:30 a.m. and 9 p.m.
Can we amend item E?
Yes.
Just to clarify that it's 1 handler per
Play space?
play space.
Yes. So item E will be no more than 4 play spaces containing 12 dogs with 1 handler per play space.
Love it.
Are we good? Okay, do I have a motion?
So
Or-
moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next up, we have the preliminary plat site plan review for the 258-unit apartment development at 7601 3rd Street North. Do you have a presentation?
I sure do. And I know the applicant is here and they have a presentation also. This proposal is for the impact apartments in the Helmo Station area, specifically on the R5 parcel that is shown on the first page of the staff report. The request is for both preliminary plat and site plan approval. The zoning was already changed back in 2018 to Helmo Station Planned Unit Development. And so there are a few deviations from that PUD ordinance that are being proposed, and I'll walk you through those. The proposal is for a high-density residential building, an apartment building with commercial office space and some amenity space on the first floor. The parking is proposed to be interior to the site and on 1 level below ground. They are proposing a 0 setback on 3 sides of the building, the Helmo side, as well as 2 new future streets. The only side that doesn't have a 0 setback is the side that abuts a stormwater retention pond. In looking at the zoning district requirements, there are a few spots, as I mentioned, that deviate. First of all, the density that's being proposed here on this site is 117 units per acre. The Helmo Station Planned Unit Development District has a maximum of 50 units per acre.
Right.
So that's a big one
Yeah.
that we will discuss. There's a height deviation being requested. They're proposing a 7-story building, and 6 is the maximum height in that PUD district. There are a couple of spots on their photometric plan where the lighting levels exceed the maximum foot candles at the property line, mainly due to the 0 setback. And it's not listed on here, but I'll mention that later on in the staff report, we talk about they are actually providing a little bit more of a parking ratio than the maximum allowed. They're proposing 1.55 spaces per dwelling unit, and the maximum is 1.5, so there's a little extra parking there. Regarding parking, as you can see from that site plan, there is some additional parking that they're proposing on the R6 parcel just to the south. That's a temporary parking lot that will go away when the R6 parcel is built out, several years from now, I assume, but I don't know when exactly. Regarding the preliminary plat, they're proposing 2 lots on 2 blocks and then 2 outlots for stormwater management. The plat meets all of the requirements for preliminary plat approval. There are some engineering comments that are attached that I'll go through in a moment. The site plan and PUD deviations. One of the deviations that I did mention, there's a 10-foot maximum setback for the rear in that PUD, but on the one side with the stormwater pond, it obviously is not possible for them to build 10 feet from that lot line. All the rest of them comply. The height is 7 stories. The applicant has provided some visualizations in your packet. I think it's on the last page of all of the packet materials that show from the adjacent residential areas what it will look like when you're looking towards this building. And I'm assuming that you'll go through that in your presentation too. So you can see those in more detail. There will be an additional 3 to 4 story building built in between this building and the adjacent residential the residential to the north. So that will help mitigate the height. Overall, regarding height, and this goes for density also, when staff was looking at this site and the density that's being proposed, the height that's being proposed, our opinion is that if you're going to have density anywhere in Oakdale, this spot is the place that would make the most sense given its proximity to the highway and it's directly across the street from the BRT station. We are waiting for a traffic study to be done because that's the big concern one of the big concerns with the extra density is, can the street network handle it? And I know that that's underway. We also have requested a noise analysis because there is part of our ordinance that requires a noise study, particularly because this site is not adjacent to the highway, but the one to the south is, and it's in pretty close proximity, so I know that that's pending also. The Public Works Department has and engineering have the responsibility of evaluating that and make sure that it meets federal standards for noise. I mentioned the parking. If you stick to the letter of the ordinance, they would have to get rid of some parking spaces to reduce the total number of off-site spaces to 408. Or you could approve a deviation that would allow 1.55 spaces per unit. Regarding the exterior building materials, your ordinance requires that 70% of the face of the building be Class 1 materials, and those are listed as brick, natural stone, architectural recast stone, glass, copper panels, stainless steel or other superior metal, or other comparable or superior materials. Right now, they're proposing mostly EFIS panels, and so just looking at the letter of the law, it doesn't meet that Class 1 requirement. I know that the applicant has brought some material samples that we can discuss. That's another deviation that you could waive, but we can see the samples and decide there. There's just a couple other small things. The roof, there needs to be a roof on the trash enclosure. They're short about 9 trees on the landscape plant, overstory trees. And again, the site lighting foot candle requirement, it's basically impossible to meet that half-a-foot candle standard at the property line if you have a 0 lot line building. If you've got any fixture on the wall, it kind of doesn't work. And so because of the fact that the density increase is pretty significant, my recommendation was to continue this hearing and this item till the February meeting so that we can have the traffic study in hand, we can have the noise study in hand. There are some engineering issues that were also brought up that will give the applicant a chance to address those, and that we can have maybe more of a complete discussion, but it would be appropriate tonight to open the public hearing, hear from the applicants, and discuss your initial impressions of the project.
I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing at this point, so.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mike Salt. I'm representing Norhart, and I'm here with Marie, who's the construction manager from Norhart 2. And we put together a presentation to discuss this project, which I believe is appropriate for the site that we're looking at. So of course, the building, as you can see, is called Impact Apartments, and we're trying to design something that's very community orientated. So if you could, he's my switch man now.
That's what they hired me for.
So when we first got this site, we thought it was a beautiful site, and the interactivity that was explained to us from the city was that you wanted something that's very active, a very active edge around the building, so that we can get kind of a vibrant activity down on the street. So being Helmo Street is being rebuilt, and you're extending it from your neighbors across the freeway, and you're putting in this tram system to go through it, you're kind of creating a real active edge. So we wanted to take advantage of that system that you're creating and put in a building there that would provide for all those issues that you're trying to build up on the site. So to make it very active and complete, and we created a building that we think fulfills all the obligations that you were looking for inside your city planning. So we tried to come up with a lot of concepts within this building to make it not just an apartment building, but something that's really a focus point of the city, a place that people want to go to. Because we want to create a place that is active for 18 hours a day that we were asked to do on that street front. So it's got a lot of people walking on it, it's got a lot of participation, it's got a lot of use groups going on, so that this is a place where people kind of focus at and go to. And the building we created takes in a lot of concepts. As Norhart, we try to create a better way to live, and this building kind of fulfills that obligation. And as you see as we go through it, all the amenities and all the different spaces we built into it, and how we built it to actually work with the street front on 3 full sides. And of course, the last side is just the one that's on the water retention side. The active sides are fully built into the street front that you wish to have as very active. So this is just showing some amenity ideas that we were coming up with. You know, zero edge pools, big overhangs, very active spaces inside the building. If you want to switch it. No.
Sorry about this.
You may have run out of memory. You might have to open it. You might actually have to open it in the browser.
Yeah, close everything. Let's try again.
We have the PowerPoint version and the PDF version sent in, so you can probably pick either one.
Let me try it to see if that opens now.
So the inspiration, if it actually works.
It's there. Now it's trying to do things. All right.
Okay, so in creating the building, we had to create a lot of amenities. And the amenities are what the tenants are drawn to make it a little bit better of a building, just besides having straight apartment buildings. So we had to build in amenities that were attractive to people. So we went through a lot of list of concepts of what will work best in this building to attract the best clients and to make this building just something more than just an average apartment building. So some of these pictures are the concepts that we originally looked at of what we can put inside the building that would make it more exciting for those who want to come here and stay here, as opposed to something they may stay in for 6 months and move on. So we built it with a lot of amenities, and some of the inspiration we had for these amenities are shown in these pictures, like saunas and fitness rooms, and of course, kind of like massage rooms, if you want to jump to the next slide. Because there are many types of clients who are going to be in this building. And we got adults, we got teens, we got kids. So we try to bring rooms into this building which will appeal to all those different members of, society. So we're going to have a really nice kids' play space as shown by this particular slide. And we came up with concepts for a teen room. We're probably going to combine the teen and kid room together so that these two active groups have a place that they can go to that's inside the building, so they're not out creating mischief on the streets, but they're very active within the space that they actually live in. We also have a nice little movie theater room that's going to be built into it so that it's very active. So all these different spaces will provide all sorts of entertainment that the tenants of this building can use. So it's kind of an enclosed space that everybody can remain in and get fully active while they're in this building itself. Next one. We've incorporated a lot of design concepts which will, make it one step above, because we're trying to create a building that's not just a place to live, but it's a place that makes you feel better. So in creating the amenities for this building, we have to look at the health reasons, the fitness, entertainment, and things that you want to see in your everyday life. So this particular concept shows this biophilic design where we're actually incorporating a lot of the natural plantings within the building so that it's more appealing. It's not just a bunch of hard surfaces. It's actually bringing the outdoor indoors, especially in the wintertime when it gets so cold around here, that we can actually have a place in there that people go to and feel like they're still in the outside. And we're trying to get that active street front, and one of the main reasons or main ways we're doing that is providing a 2-story restaurant, and that's right along the Helmo Street. And this restaurant is going to have upper stair, it's going to have a location on the upper level that's for, seating and eating, and the lower level will be the main restaurant area. And that takes up half of the Helmo Street front itself. And that activity that goes on within this restaurant can be taken to the street front itself by having some active seating out there so that they can have their tenants who want to come here and eat to participate by going on the outside of the building too. So there'll be some continuous in the summertime or in the springtime locations where they can sit outside too and participate within the building and kind of make that more active. So the project location, as you know, it's at Helmo Street, which is right on I-94 and the 694 intersection. So the overall plan, it shows down in the lower left, and if you walk up to the top, you show where the main site is. And then that site is what was developed from the city to give us the R5 and R6 sites. So we actually have purchased the R5 site, which is where this building is going, and the R6 site too. So the overall intent is to have 2 buildings put on these 2 sites. And these are 2 of the high-density sites that we have. And part of the concept was that you had a 0 lot line, as shown in those 2 red spaces, is also where you wanted to have some retail space, which we've totally incorporated into our building. So we're taking what you have provided, and we're kind of building our building into that concept that you originally planned when you put this site plan together. If you can skip to the next one. Now, as you see here, this shows our building on the site. We did maximize the site itself on R5. And so we built out all sides, and the Helmo side is actually the one that's right on the street front itself, so there is an actual 0 lot line there. That's what was required within the documents that we were given. So we've met that requirement. But in that requirement, we had to also provide access to the building. And because of the fact that we're so close to the water retention center, or water retention pond, we had to raise the building up to the point where it's like 3 feet above the actual street front, which caused an issue. So to counteract that, we had to put some stairs and a ramp on the front of the building, and those ramps, that ramp and stairs is actually on city property in the wide sidewalk. So we're using that as access to get in. But if we were right on street front, we wouldn't have that issue, but since it's raised up, which you'll see in the elevations, we have 3 feet of difference between our finished floor and that sidewalk. So this ramp and stairwell lets us do that. And we're also asking, since the street front is meant to be active, the yellow portion of that would be the restaurant section, and the pink portion on the left side, on the Helmholtz side, would be the actual vestibule entryway. We also have a coffee shop within that space, which is the northern, on the north side, closer to the pond, where it says coffee, that's where the coffee shop is. So that'll be interacting with the sidewalk located adjacent to it, while the restaurant will be working with the sidewalk adjacent to that. So the full sidewalk is kind of being used in an active way so that we can have tenants who can go out there and have a meal or drink a coffee, and also while they use the building inside. So it's kind of working together. And the two other sides, the two new streets, the building isn't exactly on the lot line. The building's pushed back up to 10 feet, but then the patios hang over another 5 feet. So there's actually, at some locations, it's 5 feet back. Some locations, it's more like 2 feet. So it kind of varies because the site varies. So there are many locations where the building is maybe 5 feet back or 10 feet back. And the only ones that's actually at a zero lot line is right on Helmholtz Street, in that little portion of the yellow, which is getting closer to the new street. We've also relocated our drive into the building on the south side. And the reason for that is because the tenants for the restaurant spaces, they need to have direct access to the parking. So we had to rearrange our original plan to give the tenants the actual use of that first floor. So that's why our parking count had to increase, because the initial parking count was just for residential units. But now we have 2 tenants in this building, as required to have tenants for commercial, and those commercial tenants need to have parking themselves. So we couldn't tell the tenants that they had to park on the R6 site because we couldn't lease it out at that point. We've been talking to real estate agents. So it was a requirement that we provided parking for those tenants. So that restaurant tenant now has use of all the parking on the first floor inside this building. And we had to relocate our original ramp, which was on the east side, to the south side so that they can direct them to where to go. They have to be able to see that parking space. So all the additional parking that we had for tenants that were on that first floor, we had to put on the other site. That's why that parking space has grown a bit. So we took into account the fact that a restaurant tenant's going to need a substantial amount of parking, both for employees and for tenants who come there to eat, or for clients who come there to eat. So it did grow the parking. And it's not because of the residential though, it's because of we just had to provide more parking, which wasn't included in that initial count for this building. So that R6 site did grow a bit for parking, and it's because of that one issue. But on the east side, where we originally had the parking deck, it's now the exit for the trash container. So you can see in the upper right corner, it's kind of like a little gray line. The trash can actually come out of the building in that northeast corner now, and there's potential where we don't have to use that exterior parking or trash container location. We still want to get it in the mix just in case there's a need based on how they pick up the garbage. But the new way we're using the building, I think they can actually take the containers out of the building, push them out to where they need to pick them up, and once they pick them up, push it back in the building. So we may have actually no garbage exposed ever, except when they pick it up, put it back down and push it in. But we still want to take the precaution that if the people who are operating the equipment for the garbage need to have an outdoor site for it, that we have one approved just in case. But most likely, we won't need that. So it all kind of worked out nicely. Since we took out the driveway on that side, having the trash over there works out really nice for pickup. Okay. Next slide.
Yep.
For density, the initial PUD stated that it was going to be 600 units for all the high-density spaces and that only counts for the east side of Helmo Street, which is what these numbers are. But there was also a report done that provided a future outlook, what density is going to be for this area, and it was a lot higher. So with the future outlook probably being what the reality is for this site, we're trying to get a higher density into our buildings also. And based off of the report that was already done, approaching 1,000 units on this site is not unheard of. It's actually assumed when the future calculations come out. So we are actually, on the R5 site and R6 together, we're trying to get about 550? So we're approaching the 600 number that's shown on the right side. So we are pushing the density higher, and for several reasons. One, we need it to bring those good amenities in. You can't have a good building with the good amenities and not have a way to kind of cover that. So the extra rents will pay for the really good amenities and beautiful building we designed. But it fits into what the future plan is per the report that was given to us for the future use of this site. So although we are right now pushing what might be considered additional quantities of residents there, we think that what the site can hold and what the future holds is that we fit right into what the future market is for this area. And that's what we pulled this out of the report you had given to us already. So the multi-use family units, which are the yellow ones, the R5, R6, adjacent to it, R7, they all fit into that higher density, which is going to occur, especially after they finish that bridge and tie Woodbury to Oakdale. Okay, next one, please. So the PUD modifications, the first one is zone PUD, so that allows us to vary it if we need to. The height of the building acquired 6 stories. We're asking for 7, but if you can see in the drawing, the 7th floor isn't really a full floor. The 7th level is where the pool is, and just the second floor of 4 units, and that's all it really is. So it's not a whole floor of residential towers are there. It's just that those 2 on the right and the 2 on the left, which are flanking each side of the stairwell, those are all of the construction that we have on that level. It's 4 loft units total, which are 2 stories. So the second floor of that loft is the 7th floor, and that's it. So it's not really we're not adding another 25 or 30 units to the 7th floor. It's just 1 unit with a second floor, and it's 4 of them. So if you see in the drawing there on the right, the top corners are the second floor of the loft units, and that is your 7th floor, plus the pool and the patio. So it's not really a full floor to have to worry about. The main building setback, as she discussed earlier, is 0, but the PUD actually says 0 is required, especially on the Hemel Street, and that's what we provided. And the other ones are not actually at 0. Density, that's the big one. We are asking for a lot more density, and I think the site is good for that density. It's in a good area. It's not located directly adjacent to residential. They're a distance off. And the building, to provide a building that has all these amenities and provides all the people to actually flow and work in this area, the higher density is fitting for what it is. And we met all the other requirements of the site. We just need to get a few more people into the building to make it work and flow better. Sorry, a couple more.
One
Sit
more?
back once
Okay.
more. Parking we talked about. The R6 site is our overflow site right now for parking. Eventually, we will build a building on that site, and then the parking will be incorporated into what's on that site. So we just want to make sure that the exposed parking on that site is okay for now, because we will redesign most of that space when we do the second building. Okay, next one. Now, the views, it was brought up to us previously that the views from the residential could be an issue. So we created this slide to show that you really won't see the views. If for the residential buildings, which are up the upper north and are shown from slides 1, 2, and 3, the pictures, if you look on the left for like view 1, you can see that the whole residential complex is surrounded by trees. And then the second picture is the other one, which shows that whole side is surrounded by trees too. And then 2 buildings are going to be put inside these other sites or eventually. I know that the one on the left is already sold out or sold. The one on the right is going to be an office building. So if you put those buildings in and add in all the trees, and you can see the pictures on the right, you really don't see our building. There's only one little, on the like slide 2, you can see between the 2 buildings, you can see the building. That is our building, the R5 site. You really can't see it. So the extra height isn't really affecting the residential side. You don't see it, especially after they build those next buildings. Even if they didn't, the tree line is so big that you can't see through it. So I don't think that having that additional floor on there affects or changes anything from the residential side. So they're not affected by the height. So the PUD, the request in the PUD was to incorporate all these different concepts. So our design, we tried to avoid an institutional design. So you'll see from the elevations, it's not a cookie cutter building. It's very fun, it's very vibrant, and it's designed to interact with the community. We designed Helmo on the street edge, so it fully utilizes the open and interactive street front design, which you'll see we've done that totally. The whole front in that building is made out of glass, so you can see in, you can see out, and it kind of participates with the two like it's one. The building, we tried to hide the parking. So in the building, we put all of our parking as much as we can into the building. The entire basement's parking, the first floor is mostly parking, the second floor is a lot of parking too. So there's built-in ramps inside the building, and then the overflow kind of goes onto the R6 site for now. So we did hide the parking as much as we can. Large street front windows. The whole first floor and second floor on Helmo Street is all glass. The units themselves have 9'6" high windows by 6 foot wide, so we provided very large glazed areas around the entire facade. So it's not just all material and siding. Inviting entryways for the residents and non-residents, so they're sharing a space for year-round use. The building is designed to be shared. Helmo Street's very active. The residential side, the first floor, we provided decks with actual walkways off those decks, so they have kind of a townhouse feel. So you're not looking at a building that seems to be 6 stories high, because the whole first floor is if you're a normal townhouse, which, you know, in townhouses, they have nice porches and then stairs coming down. So we did that to the first floor units as if they were a townhouse feel. So as you walk down the new street on both sides, you're going to see balconies, you're going to see doors, you're going to see stairwells coming down, and it's going to be very interactive with the street front. So we're trying to create that 18-hour street front utilization, which was requested of us, and I think through these concepts that we've created on the building, we've pretty much fulfilled that obligation, and we just want to see the people use that street front as you requested. So the perspectives, this is the front perspective down Helmo Street. You can see we put in the location where you're going to have the bus stops, so that's kind of built into this design. So this is the active view of it, and you can see that the street front itself is designed to incorporate the sidewalk as if it's part of the building. And the natural plantings we have in the stairwell ramp going up, plus the greenery from the biophilic design inside the building all kind of interacts together. So it's like one continuous activity zone. And the streets that are along the actual street front, those are taken care of by the city. That's not really part of our design. So we couldn't, it is whatever the city plans for that, because that's not in the sidewalk itself is not a part of our construction. Next one. So the other corner, this is the second building that we put in there just for visualization. But you can see that the street front is very active. We want those people sitting outside, using that restaurant area to activate the street front. And the balconies and all the people out there, and hopefully a lot of plants going on, so that the whole building is just kind of vibrant and creates that appeal. So we want people to be appealed to it, so that it attracts people and use groups down there, so they can just interact with the street front. Next one. This is just the view down the new street. At that bend in the road is where the actual driveway will be to get into the building, but it's pretty well hidden. You can see you can't see the parking behind this building. The first 2 floors that you see, the units are only on the front side, and everything behind that is a corridor and then just a walk and parking. But as you go up higher, that's when it becomes, a double stack, so you have units inside and outside. So you really can't tell what's going on behind it, and the parking's well hidden. And this is the view from the pond. Excuse me. You can see on this view, this is a view that will be facing the residential. The 7th floor just contains those 2 units, and those are the 2nd floor units from the loft space. Because we have 4 big loft buildings, or loft units inside this building, and they take up those corner unit sides, right, flanking 2 sides of the stairwell. Okay, so we believe in no heart that the addition of no heart to the landscape of Oakdale will provide a substantial community improvement to the heart of the city. And I think that through this building, it's pretty much provided everything that you wanted, and we enjoy, participating in such a beautiful design, because it's a very active, beautiful building for this area. That's all I have.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I'll start with one. One of the things we're going to be reviewing here is the exterior building materials and designs. Do you have examples or what you are thinking of using?
We're trying to propose EFIS because, it can be a material now that it appeals to a lot of people because it takes on any type of effect that you want. So this panel we had made up actually just shows some of the lower level stones, but it also can be made into a wood panel, like the stairwells are made out of wood. And you can see EFIS now and this isn't the color we'd use, but if you look at this panel, you can see that it actually looks a lot like wood now. So what we use is this material it helps us it lowers the cost of a lot of these very expensive materials because we have a very big building. At the same time, it provides a look that's very appealing because it looks just like the material that we are trying to replace. So we're going to use it potentially for the stone, for the metal panel look. We're going to try to match the colors up very close to the panels we chose in showing this design. And the actual stairwell is wrapped with material that looks like this, which is a wood look, kind of like a wood panel, horizontal wood panel. And I think that this is a good example of the quality that they can get out of this material, even though it's not an actual wood material. So you want me to pass this around, or?
Sure, I can dig it.
So to clarify then, on these elevations where you say decorative masonry faux stone, that's EFIS?
Could be.
Okay.
Yeah. It's going to come down to overall building cost.
Right.
As an architect, I want to use the real thing. But I have other.
Construction person, Marie does not want to use that.
I can only go so far. I can propose, and then it gets disposed.
I guess for me, my preference is at that, I'm a developer by day, and I hate this term, but at that pedestrian level. That's where I want to see the real material, the real stone, the real brick, even the veneer would be better than EFIS. Once you get above that pedestrian level, I myself don't have any problems with EFIS, but it's that where you can actually interact with that material is where I would like to see
I'm in agreement.
the natural materials.
Okay.
Or those true materials, if you will.
I don't disagree. I got to be careful, though. Yeah, so I don't disagree. I think we were going to use my original proposal was like a fox stone. designed to look very, it's like a very modern-looking stone. But it's got a regimented, you know, it's like a very, almost like the EFS panels, except that the joint is a lot thinner, and it's very clean-looking, but it's still a stone product, a cement stone product. So that was the original proposal. We're trying to mimic it as much as we can with other materials, but, you know, whatever council believes is the best, we'll do that.
Dallas had something, didn't he?
He sure did. Okay, so his first comment regarding the lighting, there are no adjacent residential neighbors, so the lighting deviation should be acceptable. The 7 stories sort of violates the
Yeah.
quote-unquote promise to the neighbors north of 4th Street during community review for visual lines of sight. What are requirements for community discussion? Do buildings planned for the area between 4th Street and this already make the line of sight such that this additional floor would not be visible? Is the 7th floor the open structure pool, thus not much visual interference? The drawing showing the floor heights does not show the open structure pool as described in earlier drawings. It looks enclosed there. So that was his, I think we've addressed some of those comments in your presentation, but those were his thoughts on the height. Given that parking is always an issue, would it not be better to grant a deviation to allow them to put in the additional spaces they planned? Or is that to increase open space? I think his question is, are we requiring less parking so we can have more open space? That's not actually the reason for the requirement here. And he agrees with Brian, the city engineer's suggestion that a traffic and noise study be done due to the large increase in living unit density.
I do have a
Those are
comment.
being done, yeah.
I do have a comment about the height. I don't have a problem with 7 stories. For me, that's completely arbitrary, because their floor-to-floor height right now is 11 and a half feet. They could do 15 feet and be a 6-story building, and it's going to exceed the height of what they've proposed. And under the letter of the law, that would be okay. So I think to say that, I would prefer if our ordinance was a height limit, you know, you've got to be under 80 feet or something like that. But when it's 6 stories, I don't have a problem with 7 myself. Can we talk about parking a little bit?
Yes.
Sure.
So what is I wasn't following how many total stalls you're providing in the building.
Yeah, we have a written number
Were
in
you at
there.
like 500 or something like that?
It's like 450 in the building, and then another 157 on the other lot, or something like that. Either, it's all total, it's like 500 and, I think it's 525.
Right there.
Yeah.
So is that 425 then? So that must be in the structure, 76 on the outlot?
Yeah, we have 3
Or is-
levels of parking inside the building. So the first basement level is pure parking. And then the first level is, the inside space is all parking, and the second level, the inside space is all parking.
And you do have surface parking inside the building envelope on the ground floor.
Yeah, the first floor would be ground floor parking.
Or exposed, but wrapped by the building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, nothing's exposed in the building itself in R5. The only thing
Right.
exposed is on R6. And
Right.
that's going to be incorporated, and that's mostly because that parking is, we need additional parking for the restaurants. So the restaurant needed a lot of parking. They weren't willing to go on the outside, so we had to put them on the inside. So all of our tenant spaces on the inside, which was about 70 of them, we had to push the outside of the building.
Mike, does that include the surface lot, like the?
Can you come up
surface
to
lot?
the microphone?
I was just
Yeah, I mean,
asking, like, I'm not sure if that was the updated
yeah, that
number
includes, that's
with
not the
surface
updated
lot.
number, though. It's
Yeah.
So we added extra parking to the surface lot because we're dedicating first floor to the restaurant. So the restaurant will have the first floor parking, and then the basement, second floor, and surface lot would be for tenants. And so
Okay. Could we get a firmer number for next month when we come back?
send that to Aaron tomorrow.
Yeah. And some indication of whether they're like dedicated to a particular use and,
Yep.
yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time? I am not going to close public hearing, but I'm going to make a motion that we continue to the February 3rd, 2022 meeting. Do I have a, my brain is now done. Motion.
So moved.
30.
Yes,
It's
it
time
is.
to go home.
It's bedtime.
It's a late meeting for us.
Some of us have small children. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? See you next month.
Thank you. We'll be back.
And then our final piece of tonight is the forefront at 3505 High Point Drive North. The preliminary plat and site plan review.
Okay. It's actually a preliminary plat and a final plat.
Oh, and a final, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. That's why I started the staff report with a little history on the item. Back in September, there were two site plans that were approved. One with a one-building scenario and one with a two-building scenario. At the time, the applicants weren't sure which build-out would occur, so hopefully you'll recall that those two site plans were approved. Before that, a planned unit development ordinance amendment was approved to allow a little bit more flexibility in the uses that could go on the site. And so right now, what we're looking at is a preliminary and final plat application, assuming the single building scenario site plan that was approved. So we're just looking at the plat. From a planning and zoning perspective, the proposed plat meets the requirements of your subdivision ordinance, as well as the lot size and lot dimensions of the zoning district. The only thing from a planning perspective is that the pathway needs to be adjusted just to make sure that it's at least 4 feet from the street. You got an addendum to the staff report that contains quite a few engineering comments. I will summarize the major comments that engineering had, mainly that a couple or one additional lot from the second edition be included in this plat because there are some adjustments needed to the lot lines so that existing parking lot improvements can be properly allocated. Right now, Outlot D is not accessible by any roadway, so there would need to be some significant adjustments to the plat to make sure that there's access even from a private road to Outlot D. Outlot C has the proposed stormwater facilities, and that needs to be deeded to the city. And then there are some errors regarding street labeling on the plat. There are a few private drainage easements that need to be provided that are described in the engineering memo. There are some general concerns about the ability of the stormwater treatment facilities to meet watershed requirements. So we would like to see a copy of the stormwater management plan that will be the subject of a watershed district permit. So given those significant issues that have been pointed out by engineering, staff's recommendation is to also continue this public hearing and give the applicant a chance to address those to the engineering and public works satisfaction.
We're going to go ahead and open up the public hearing.
Hello, good evening, Commissioner Scott Peterson, representing United Properties, 651 Nicollet Mall, on behalf of the Larson family and United Properties. We did receive staff's comments specifically on engineering. We received them yesterday. We understand them. We've gone through them. We're prepared to address any questions in there tonight. I do think it's important for this commission to kind of understand the process we've gone through. This is our 5th or 6th time in front of council or commission in the last 9 months. I think we've been very upfront and direct with what we've come to request. We held a courtesy preliminary plat review with staff at the end of November, and at that point, we received 0 comments. So we did our formal submitted plat application December 10th. We received a comment back on December 16th that was incomplete, and there were comments. Not a problem. That's the process. We understand it. We took those comments in stride. We addressed those comments. We resubmitted on the 21st of December. At that point, it was also deemed complete on the 21st. We received, to Aaron's comment, we received a comment from planning staff that recommendation would be supported and approved. And then shortly after, inside of 24 hours, we've received engineering comments on this topic. So it's a little disheartening to take engineering comments on a third pass that we haven't seen, and frankly, to lose 30 days is a little bit challenging. So I'm happy to address those comments and answer any questions. If the council and commission will allow just 2 more minutes of my time here. I think fundamentally, there's a little bit of a disagreement in how we're looking at this plat. Okay, so this is a master plan plat. The current owners of all these parcels is the Larson family. At the time the plat being filed, those current parcel owners and outlots is the Larson family. So to start looking at certain scenarios in here that say this parcel needs to grant easement to itself and to the same ownership on this parcel, I think is just premature and irrelevant at this point of the master plan. I also think when you look at all these outlots and these out parcels, we, the developer or the partnership or the owner, have to come back and still follow all the normal city guidelines. We still have to come back and do a site plan. We still have to come back and pull grading permits. We still have to come back and do watershed. So all these outlots still, there's a backstop in place with all these different processes and procedures to make sure that we're following all these things correctly. So I don't want a plat to be held up for hypothetical down the road scenarios. And I think that's what some of these comments frankly are addressing. I also think due to that nature, what we've requested is to have certain easements, which majority of those easements are private, on their private property, be recorded in narrative form and recorded and documented as a description, a legal description, outside of the actual visual plat. And that's for a couple reasons. One, to update a visual plat on the actual plat document is 45 to 65 days. It's much more expensive. It's way more confusing for all parties involved compared to if an easement needs to get moved. We don't know what the uses are going to be for some of these sites. Who knows what the future holds? The city still, we're in talks on additional PUD amendments. So for the sake of trying to hardline easements on outlots and parcels that we don't know the end uses, I just think it's not necessary at this time. Secondly, the city has already provided a draft development agreement, a SEPA agreement. I think that's a more appropriate place to put some of these items at play than to hold up a plat application. And then lastly, just if it weren't a master plan and they weren't the same owners right now, if you look at how a normal single lot would be developed, an owner or a developer would buy a single lot, and if they determined they needed an easement, they would go knock on their neighbor's door and work through an easement agreement. That's how it's done 90% of the time. My request to commission is we allow that same mindset to take place, and the landowners can knock on their own doors as the time's right, that are all still owned by the same entity, to work through these necessary easements. So again, I'm happy to answer any questions. There are, if you look at the last page here on the memo here, items 3, 4, we would agree to. We have no problem with that. The deeded outlot of C, that's been agreed to and discussed. The revised, the streets mislabeled as public. I believe they are actually correctly stated on the plat. I believe this comment may be referring to a potential site plan that was included there. And then item 5, recording of an easement over an existing water main improvement for 1995. Yeah, absolutely. We'll do our part to catch up documents where they need to get caught up. We think that benefits the landowner. We think that benefits the city. My request there would be that that's a private easement, not labeled a utility easement, not labeled a drainage easement, just easement. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. But, you know, we would still ask, just in the effort to not lose 30 days, still ask for some sort of motion to keep advancing it with the ownership and development team committing to items 3, 4, and the statement of 5 being a private easement. So, thank you.
Anyone have a question?
I do, Aaron, so the combination of outlots A, D, and E, that's just engineering's request, that's not the applicant's request.
Correct. That, on page 2 of the engineering memo, there are a list of 6 conditions, and those were all drafted by the city engineer. Yep.
I guess I'm not in, I mean, I don't see why we need to get into the business of saying you need to combine these outlots. If there's no access to them, then you can't sell them. Nobody's gonna buy them if they can't access it. So that's something that you're gonna figure out.
And if I may, I think that's just an incorrect statement. So we're designing the building, and you can see the building footprint there, to have future expansion options. So if we go build 50,000 square feet onto that outlot, our access doesn't change, our circulation doesn't change. That's why you'll see we're routing the utilities all the way up to the far north property line, so that if we do expand that building, we just knock down the walls and keep expanding. So that doesn't change anything. Secondly, to Aaron's point earlier, our original site plan did show 2 entrances. So if we need to go back and put a second entrance into that outlot, it still fits within the approved and laid out plat that we have here in front of us. So we can accommodate the future there.
Are there any other questions?
When did this first come in?
It was mid-December. I think it was December 10th. There were a few incomplete items, and so it was deemed complete on the 20th of December.
So how is it that if it's deemed complete on the 20th, that 2 weeks later, we get engineering comments that upend this whole thing?
Well, of course, I can't speak for the city engineer, but I can speak to the process. In between when this was submitted and when it was deemed complete, the engineering staff looked at it to make sure that all of basically the completeness review says, we look at this, we make sure that everything that is on our subdivision requirements has been submitted for us to evaluate. It doesn't necessarily mean that there will not be comments or there will not be things that are non-compliant, but we have all the information. So that was what the completeness review, engineering said, yes, it's complete on the 20th. Now, they still have comments, things that they want to see changed on the plans, and that's appropriate. That sometimes happens with planning and zoning as well. I think the delay in getting comments was due to the holidays and the deadline for the packet and whatnot.
Yeah, it just seems, I am frustrated for the applicant because it seems to me that there's something wrong in the process. And this is obviously something that we can, take offline, but personally, I mean, it doesn't feel like it should be here until it's deemed complete, and not deemed complete in the sense that, oh, we have everything, but deemed complete that, yes, applicant is on board, they've addressed everything, staff is comfortable, that applicant has addressed everything, let's now move it forward. It feels like there's a mechanism to their point that we can continue to move this forward.
And
It has to go to council
Right,
regardless.
I was going to say, it's going to go to council,
So-
and they have final approval anyway,
Right, so there's got to be a way for us to move this forward,
Mm-hmm.
conditioned on applicant and staff continuing to work these things out over the next
They have till the
3 weeks.
25th, right?
Right.
So they
25th
could,
is the council meeting. Yeah, and actually, the 60-day review deadline is February 18th, so there's probably an additional council meeting after that would still fit in with that. In general, I will say that statute gives us 15 days to deem an application complete. It's not customary that we wait to bring something to you until all issues are resolved, because that can hold up things, and I think that gives staff too much power to make decisions on things that you should evaluate and give input on. So I don't think it's unusual or inappropriate to have engineering comments like this. I think if you certainly are able to move it forward with, a generic condition like I included in the planning staff report, that all engineering issues are resolved before council approval, that's certainly your option, if you feel comfortable with the issues that are still hanging out there, and letting the applicant work with staff on those.
I guess that'd be my question back to the applicant. Are you comfortable
Yes.
with that blanket, approval with pending your resolution of these engineering comments over the next 3 weeks before council, or before your council hearing?
Yes, we are. And I guess I still think it's not just ticking the box on these 8 items. I truly think there is a bigger discussion of, we'll deal with Outlot D when you come back with a grading permit and a site plan on Outlot D, and to hold us accountable for, we have no idea what's going to go there or when it's going to go there, I think is challenging in some of these comments. So like I said, there are comments in there right now that we'll agree to and we'll move forward, and I think it's in everyone's best interest. So if you're looking for an approval that, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth here, but if you're looking for an approval that's, commission, however you guys want to phrase it, but basically it advances to council with the understanding that in the next 3 weeks, or whatever the working timeline is for the next hearing, that staff and applicant get in alignment, that's fine, we'll accept that.
That's my intention, is
Yeah,
not that you agree to every letter on, or every item on here, but that mutually applicant and staff come to an agreement.
That sounds great, that's the way it should be. Thank you.
Okay.
So that would be my recommendation, is we.
Okay,
move
I'm going to
forward
try to
with
word
that.
this now.
Well, wait, it might be, I think it may be worded that way already, so.
Yes, let's see here.
I don't want to read the conditions per exactly
No.
case, because I want them to be able to reach a mutual agreement.
Right,
And so-
that's why I just wanted us to look at it again to make sure it
I
didn't maybe already meet.
So if I could suggest, on page 3 of the planning staff report, which was included in your packet, not in the engineering
Yes, I'm on
addendum.
that one, yes.
Right, it does say that one of the conditions is that comments from engineering, the building official, and the fire chief are addressed. It doesn't specifically list the conditions.
I
If you-
can make
yeah.
that work.
And then the rest of them are just, minor things that need to be included on the final plat drawing.
Okay. I'm asking for a motion to recommend, oh wait, does Dallas have comments on this one?
He did not have comments
Okay.
on this one.
I'm going, I know.
You all right? Somebody give him a call?
I'm going to close the public hearing now, and I'm going to ask for a motion to recommend approval of the preliminary and final plat for Forefront Office and Business Park, Oakdale Farms 3 addition, with the following conditions: that any comments from city engineering, the building official, and fire chief must be addressed before the city council meeting.
Yeah.
Pedestrian pathways are adjusted to be at least 4 feet from the adjacent street. Legal description and contact info on the final plat. Certification needed in plat notes, and attorney's opinions of titles showing title of control of property needed on that plat.
I will make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, next up is, do we have any planning development updates?
Well, the big planning and development update is our new community development director has been hired and is here, so I'll let Andy introduce himself.
Yes, thank you, Aaron, and it's Madam Chair, Commissioners. It's great to be here. My background, I actually started in city and city planning, mostly in the East Metro. And so this is a lot of this is a refresher. Last 15 years, I've been at Washington County and Ramsey County working on big transit projects, namely the Gold Line project. And actually, it's great to see a lot of that coming to fruition, and all the discussions we had about development happening around that starting to happen now. So I'm really excited to go from managing, one big project with 40 different critical things on it to working in the city with 40 different critical projects at any given time. So it's exciting. We still are looking at hiring and completing, rounding out the community development department. Aaron will continue to serve as our interim city planner until our new city planner, which that posting is out there right now, becomes hired. And then we're also putting out another posting to replace the community development specialist, the economic development position as well. So slowly but surely, we're getting that full complement of a staff team. And one of the things too is also working with the other departments and our development review process, and seeing, always looking at ways to make improvements to that. It's always a difficult process to go through with application deadlines and the 60-day rule, and when things are complete, and getting everybody's comments in a timely manner, and being flexible to adjustments as you go through the process. But I think in the spirit of continuous improvement, we'll keep working on that to try to get Planning Commission the most complete and the most amount of information possible, so that you can make the most informed recommendation to council on applications, but still being respectful to the deadlines out there from the people that are proposing. So with that, it's been a long night for, it sounds like, everybody here, so I'm going to stop talking, and I'm just happy to be here and excited to work with everyone. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting ended.